On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, do the Raptors have a capacity to surprise this year? You bet your ass they do. That and the answers to many more of your mailbag questions coming up on today's show. Thanks for hanging.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, October the 15th, 1 week from opening night of the regular season. Ain't that a thrill? And I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons, 12 seasons, that is, on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join. We'd love to see you become part of our listener community over there. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And we're off and running here on a mailbag edition of Locked On Raptors here on a Wednesday. The Raptors play the Boston Celtics in preseason action later on today. Figured I'd keep it a little bit evergreen. We'll talk about the game, of course, tomorrow on the show. We've got our bold predictions episode coming up on Friday. Lots of good stuff in the hopper. But today, we open up the mailbag and answer questions from you. We've got questions about the Raptors' ability to surprise this season. And Brandon Ingram, is there a chance that this is just his team by season's end? Do the Raptors have defensive versatility in their toolbox? We'll get into that. So much more, including rivalries, milestone watch, a loaded mailbag show coming today. We'll try to get to all the questions he sent in. And if I don't, I'm sorry. It's nothing against your questions. They just should have been better. Okay, let's get to the first one here. Skip to My Lou asks, how much do you think we can surprise the league? Brandon Ingram comeback, IQ and Scotty elevating their games. Can we jump out to a start that no one was expecting? Look, I think relative to league-wide national expectations for the Raptors, 100% the Raptors have the capacity to surprise. I think most people are kind of penciling this team into like a 9 or 10 seed in the Eastern Conference, kind of on the fringes of the play-in. I think they're going to be significantly better than that. I just think they have too many good players. They have too much depth. They have too much capacity for internal growth to be a bad team. And I think, it's always easy to guess or be a skeptic about a thing you've not actually seen in practice yet. And I get it, right? Like, we haven't seen this Raptors team really play together at all. Even in the preseason, we've barely seen them play together at all. It's still very much a mystery box in a way of what you're actually going to see once this team hits the floor and is playing every single night or every 2 or 3 nights. Like, there's a lot of unforeseens, there's a lot of variables at play, but I think I just always keep coming back to there are too many good NBA players on this team, especially if Colin Murray-Boyles, hopefully his elbow's okay, if he is ready to be a contributor from day one in the NBA, that helps solidify your depth. I think Mamu is looking like a really excellent piece for this second unit. I think the Raptors are going to use him in the optimal way. That's awesome. Grady Dick has looked really strong in preseason. Jamal Shed is someone who I think is just going to give you nightly energy and juice and, some rim pressure and defense and playmaking and all that stuff. I'm still a big fan of Jacoby Walter. There's just like a lot of guys who are going to be deserving of minutes on this team. I haven't even mentioned Ochai Agbaji, maybe the most reliable of all those second unit guys. Like, there's going to be competition for minutes. That's going to bring out the best of everyone, one would think. And I just think this team returning to competitive basketball with the intent being, we want to win games this year. We want to push for the playoffs. I think that's just going to kind of galvanize the whole thing. And you will see, I think, a team that is greater than the sum of its parts. And there are a lot of parts. There's like a lot of good players on this team. No one amazing. No one like in the top 10 or 15 of the league. There's no super duper stars on this team. But I think, especially in the regular season, there are lots of formulas that work. There are multiple ways to go and win a bunch of basketball games, and trying like hell, having a lot of pretty good players, having the ability to stagger lineups and keep your starters on the floor a lot with your bench guys filling in. I think they also have some baked in injury insurance as well a little bit. Obviously, like if Scotty Barnes or Brandon Ingram go down or Jakob Poeltl go down, things get difficult. No individual guy you want to see go out, but I think they have the depth specifically on the wings to fill in capably in a way they have it in recent years as well, and just kind of withstand the attrition that comes from a regular season. every team is subject to their best players getting hurt, maybe derailing their entire year. Of course, that's the bargain everybody makes going into a season, especially in the modern NBA where injuries feel like they're at an all-time high. But I do think this team has too many good players. And the Eastern Conference, frankly, sucks too much for the Raptors to be a team that is like wallowing away in the low 30s or mid 30s in wins. I think they're going to win in the 40s, and that I think will constitute a surprise for a lot of people who maybe just have not paid attention to the Raptors for a couple of years. And hey, fair enough. I've paid attention to the Raptors for the last couple of years. It's kind of sucked. And so I don't begrudge anyone who's maybe checked out and doesn't quite understand the intricacies of the team. I do think, though, there's a very easy path to this team winning 44, 45, 46 games in this very not good conference with some teams that are less, able to stand up to injury, that already have injuries coming into the season, that have weirdness and, chemistry stuff and all of that. I just think the Raptors are in a pretty good spot, and it will be a season where the vibes are pretty good. And I don't think you should heap massive expectations because that's a way to sap the joy from this team real quick. I don't think you should go in expecting them to win 46 games. But if you go in expecting them to be like a 500-ish team, I think you will also be surprised, and pleasantly so, as the team just goes out there and wins a bunch of games as like a team that just gets by with enough good players and strong nightly defense and a try-hard ethos that really gets you through during the long, dark winter. Well, next question here comes from Wilcox1232, asking a question that, frankly, is the kind of question I hate, but we love our pal Wilcox1232. I believe a day one listener who's listened to every single episode of the podcast, a true sicko. What percentage would you assign at the end of the season that Ingram is the Raptors' best player instead of Scottie, and it's Ingram's team? I don't like this question because I don't like how it just feels like, I don't know if this is like just Zoomer brain with how the league is engaged with these days, or if it's just like, like the sort of fixation on individual players over teams. I feel like that's a thing, in sort of the broader fandom of the league. I feel like there's this constant need to pit guys against each other when it does not have to be that, right? Like, not everything needs to be the ESPN top 100 rankings to start the year. And I think there is room for all guys to just kind of like, especially on a team like this, where it is going to be a greater than the sum of its parts teams. If it's a good team, like I don't think there's a need to be like, whose team is it? Like, it can be multiple guys' teams. And I frankly think some of the most fun teams are the ones that have multiple guys who you could say, hey, that's the guy, right? Like the Grit and Grind Grizzlies are one of my favorite basketball teams of all time. That was not Marc Gasol's team. That was not Mike Conley's team. That was not Zach Randolph's team. That was the Grit and Grind Grizzlies. They had an identity that superseded any individual player. And look, sometimes you have that superstar who defines what your identity is. Sometimes you have LeBron James. Sometimes you have Luka Doncic. Sometimes you have Victor Wembanyama. And that is just the guy around which your whole identity is built. That's not what this team is. The Raptors do not have one of those inner circle super duper stars. And so they do have to be a greater than the sum of its parts type of squad. And I think that is a really enjoyable type of team to watch. We've seen this with the Raptors before, right? Now, I think anyone who knows ball knew that Kyle Lowry was the best player on the Kyle DeMar teams by quite a margin, but like that was never Kyle Lowry's team, really. That was Kyle and DeMar. It was two guys who were equally sort of like they sort of transcended the rest of the team. They were the faces, they were the fronts, and it was the Kyle and DeMar Raptors. It wasn't the Lowry Raptors, it wasn't the DeMar Raptors, it was the Kyle and DeMar years, and they were great. It was awesome, tons of fun. And I think there's a similar potential vibe you could get with this team, the Ingram and Barnes Raptors, like the Ingram, Barnes, Barrett Raptors, whatever you want it to be. Like, I think that's very much on the table for this team. And so, yeah, I'm not going to bite on this question. Is there a world where Scottie Barnes completely falls flat and Brandon Ingram is quote unquote the best player on the team and it's quote unquote his team? Sure, I guess that's there. If that happens, I don't think that's a particularly good thing for the team. I don't think if you get to a situation where it's clearly, without a doubt, Brandon Ingram's team, that this team is anywhere close to good, anywhere close to the surprising, upstart team we talked about a few minutes ago. I suppose that's like a 10%, 15% bottom level outcome. I wouldn't be thrilled if that happened, and I don't think it's going to. I think it is very much going to be kind of egalitarian in terms of whose team it is. And I do think, obviously Barnes and Ingram, they're the two lead guys. I think they're going to get equal credit because they do different things. They do, I think, specifically in terms of how they balance the floor offense, defense. I think they are very much, the offense might be built around Ingram. The defense will be built around Barnes. That is kind of how I see this playing out. So no, I don't think this is going to really end up where it's just one guy's team over another. And if it is one guy's team over another, I think it's probably because Scotty Barnes takes a leap. But again, I don't really see a huge, massive, oh my God, he's an inner circle superstar leap happening from him. I just think they can be good, effective players who are the two core pillars of what is a good, effective basketball team. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to talk about defense a little bit. We know the Raptors are going to try to be extremely aggressive, but do they have the capacity to be versatile in the schemes they run? We will get to that and much more as we continue the mailbag here on Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have a full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance app, tool, command center that brings your entire financial life together in one easy-to-use interface on your phone or your laptop. That is pretty sweet. As I've talked about, I'm not someone who likes to do admin. I got other stuff going on, man. I got to play video games. I got to go for walks. I got to play pickup basketball. I don't want to organize my finances. No. Monarch Money can do that for me. I can just put all of my accounts into one place. My accounts, my wife's accounts are joint accounts. So they're there. We know where our money's going at all times. We know what we're paying for, what we shouldn't be paying for anymore, all that stuff. You can line up how many subscription services you pay for to watch television. You can see them all in one clean place and know which accounts those are coming out of. It's a wonderful thing. Lots of great tools to go and peruse over at Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. It's code LOCKEDONNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by friends over at Game Time and basketball season, baby. It's here. The NBA's back, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer for your damn team. That's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast and stress-free. And one of you listeners, Graham, the winner of last year's Over-Unders contest, is going to Raptors Rockets this year, I think October the 29th, because Game Time showed me the tickets I was going to buy him to honor his championship in the Over-Unders contest last year. And he's going because of Game Time. It was the easiest place for me to buy those tickets to hook Graham up. It's a wonderful thing. I use Game Time tons of times. I use it for any sporting event I'm going to these days, whether it's a baseball playoff game, whether it's an NBA season game. NHL obviously is back now in these parts as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the NBA and other places with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Back at it here on your Wednesday mailbag edition of Locked On Raptors. Again, looking ahead to the second to last preseason game. I think if we're going to see the Raptors play other dudes in a preseason game, this is probably the one. Usually the last one is kind of a dud where no one plays. We shall see. But let's get to a question here from Barney Bass asking, it's been made clear that the Raptors are going to play a high-pressure, aggressive style of defense. My question is, will they be able to make the necessary adjustments when a team figures out how to beat this defense during the Nick Nurse era? They would flip between a bunch of different defenses from possession to possession. And are they going to be able to do that with this year's team? Look, I don't think comparing any team to the championship Toronto Raptors in 2019 does anybody any favors when it comes to just like trying to find a comparison point, right? That team was an unbelievable defensive team led by two former defensive players of the year in Kawhi Leonard and Marc Gasol, and one of the smartest basketball players of his generation in Kyle Lowry. Nick Nurse had a lot of great defensive ideas as well. Fred VanVleet was a monster defender off the bench. Pascal Siakam was an incredibly athletic defender. OG Anunoby was on that team before he missed the playoffs. Serge Ibaka, I believe a former blocks champion in the NBA, was on that team. That team was absolutely loaded. Danny Green was an awesome defender. Like, that team, there's a reason that team won a championship. They were absolutely stocked to the gills with incredible defensive players and smart defensive players and wizened defensive players. And Marc Gasol alone was kind of the reason they could play the defense that they did. He was capable of playing any kind of scheme you wanted. He was coming out up high and hedging against Steph Curry in the finals. He could play a classic drop. He could dance with guys in space if you needed to switch him in a pinch. Like, Marc Gasol was a generationally good big man defender. And I think, yeah, it'd be nice to see the Raptors have a little bit of multiplicity to the way they play defense this year. And I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll throw in some zone here and there. I'm sure they will mix it up and switch at times when they have certain lineups on the floor, whether it's Colin Murray-Boyles at the 5 or Mamu at the 5. I think they've even shown so far in the preseason they'll be all right switching Mamu because he's not a traditional drop big. Like, I think they will play around with different looks. Whether those are as effective as the 2019 Raptors, like, yeah, you're probably not reaching those heights. That team was incredible. I think last year we did see the team really was very rigid with how they played defense. They'd be getting cooked by a matchup, and they just didn't really do a whole lot in terms of in-game adjustments to go and try to counter what teams were throwing at them. And I think that was kind of by design. It was a season where they didn't care about winning, and Darko spoke about it throughout the year. It was like, we're not ever going to be a good defensive team if we don't first school our core principles and get good at that stuff first. And so, yeah, they probably left points on the table, left wins on the table by not changing their defenses in games last year and just kind of sticking with what their core principles were. I would imagine this year with a different edict, with the hope that they're going to win some games. And I think the style of defenders, especially in the front court, that might allow them and in some cases necessitate them changing things up and playing a little differently, I think they will probably show a few more looks. Yeah, I think we'll probably see some zone here and there. I think we'll probably see them switch quite a bit depending on the lineups they have. Basically, anytime Pirtle's not on the floor, I think they will be a pretty switch-heavy team, specifically across like the 3, 4, 5 positions. I just think, yeah, like the aggressiveness is not going to go away. That's going to be a big part of what they do. It's going to be core to running their offense and getting out on the run and scoring easy points. But yeah, I think there will be some more give as to what they like to run this year defensively. I just don't think you can expect the results that we saw, or just like the ease with which that team in 2019, just like possession by possession. Okay, we're running this defense this time down. We're running this defense this time down. They really just kind of switched on the fly based on basically what Marc Gasol was calling from the back line, and then they would do it because they were defensive geniuses. The Raptors do not have that many defensive geniuses on the team. They've got some good defensive players, guys I'm really high on, but they also have some guys who are weaker in spots. Look, you could run a box and one against Steph Curry because Fred VanVleet was that good chasing around Steph Curry. They don't have a Steph Curry chaser on the level of Fred VanVleet in 2019 either. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I think there's plenty of reason to think that they're going to be a little bit more versatile and just like open to playing different styles of defense than they were last year. This one comes from Ben Chapman, asking, there's been a lot of maximizing staggering. There's a lot of talk of maximizing the staggering of the starters. Has Ingram shown enough to this point that you'd be consider running more Ingram plus bench units than originally thought if his play sustains into the regular season? I mean, yeah, like I think we'll see at times, as much as Darko says, I want to have 2 or 3 starters on the floor at all times. And I think that is the right call, not only because you want to have your better players on the floor, but because I do think the bench guys really fit into those gaps between 2 and 3 starters for this team quite well with the diversity of skill sets that they have in the second unit. But yeah, like I think we've seen Brandon Ingram plus like some shooting and defense around him. That can get you by in some second units. You might struggle with defense at times. You might struggle with size. If you're only throwing him out there with Mamu or Colin Murray-Boyles as his nominal big. This is why I like the idea of kind of tethering a couple of the starters together. I like the idea of like IQ with Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, for example, particularly IQ with Jakob Poeltl. If you want to run Ingram with Barnes or Ingram with Barrett and then sprinkle in bench guys around those guys, I think there's a lot of ways you can maximize the fit there. Lineups where it's like Ingram, Shed, Dick, Ochai, Mamu, something like that. That can be fun. There's certainly some ways that can work. Maybe you throw in Murray-Boyles in there in place of a Jamal Shed, and you just have like Ingram run point with shooting and defense around him. That could totally work too. But I don't think we're going to see a ton of those one guy plus 4 bench guy, one starter plus 4 bench guy lineups. Mostly just because like if you're trying to get everyone their minutes, like all the starters are probably going to want to play 30 plus minutes or at least close to it. It's hard to optimize those minutes if you're only playing one starter at a time. I think for the rotation to be balanced, there will have to be 2 or 3 starters on at all times. And again, I think that's the right way to go with the way those guys' skill sets can complement one another pretty well. Speaking of complementing skill sets, Daddy asks, have your thoughts on RJ Barrett's fit changed after seeing him in the totally irrelevant preseason and seeing his fit next to Ingram, which is looking pretty decent in a small sample? Do you think the front office is less likely to move him at the trade deadline, having seen what we've seen so far? Look, I still think based on the way the books are set up, there's a real chance that RJ Barrett is the guy that gets moved by the trade deadline. That said, yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by how easy the fit seems to have been between Barrett and Ingram. I think it's looking like Ingram is going to help RJ get kind of back to the streamlined role he excelled in after the trade in 23-24, excuse me. I mean, RJ's got to finish from two. He's been pretty miserable shooting two so far in the preseason. It's been great to see him take threes and make threes. That's fantastic. If he's shooting under 50% from the rim, that's a problem. Like, he's got to be able to finish at the rim. He's got to be able to, be a real agent for rim pressure. That's not just rim pressure for rim pressure's sake. It's got to be rim pressure with the intent to score and to do it efficiently. But I think that can come along. Again, I think playing with more shooting, I think this team has more shooting than it has in recent years. Going to open up those driving lanes for Barrett. I also think he hasn't played with Jakob Poeltl yet, who is kind of like the number one RJ Barrett slingshot on this team. You run RJ around a Poeltl screen. He's not getting much more in terms of wide open spaces in front of him than he is when he's coming off of a Poeltl screen. And so, yeah, I think that will come around. And if RJ is happy to take 5-6 catch and shoot threes a game, and Ingram's happy to do it as well, that's no problem at all. That's going to make the offense functional. I think, it still remains to be seen how they get by with Ingram and Barrett as a 2-3 wing combination. I'm not sold on Barrett's defense as much as the offense, I think, has looked good, and the three-point shooting and the process has been there. It's just the defense is going to be the limiting factor here. We got to see it in real time against real opponents in real games. But, yeah, I think offensively we're seeing Ingram do that was never like RJ cannot fit with Brandon Ingram. I think it was a fair open question, and I think my concern was, is it going to allow Barrett to go back to what he was in 23-24? And so far, that very much has been the case. And I'm very into it. I'm happy to see it. Still think the defense is the limiting factor, and we'll see. But, yeah, I think the fit between those guys has been pretty encouraging early on. And, if they're good, then that's going to be the thing that keeps RJ on this team through this season, into the summer, into next year, right? That's, the individual fit, that can be fantastic. But if the team is winning at a 35-win pace, they're going to probably have to make some changes. And RJ, again, just being the guy who's not locked in compared to some of these other guys, like, he's going to be the one who sees that, sees that sort of friction point, that point of, all right, we got to make a move, probably affect him and his future with the team more than anybody else, just because how the contracts stack up. And again, I'll probably get 100 comments being like, you're hating on RJ again. That's not hating. That's just facts. It's just the reality of the cap situation. We'll come back on the other side, rattle off a few more fun ones, including Rivalry Watch, Milestone Watch, and a few more things as we wrap up the show. Thanks for being here. I love you. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel is an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's pretty sweet, ain't it? If you feel like you know for sure that a team is going to lose or win on NFL Sunday, throw some money, $5 down on them to win or lose. And if you win, $300 in bonus bets are yours to go and peruse all kinds of bets with. It's NBA preseason time. Maybe you got over-unders picks you feel strongly about. Maybe you really think the Raptors are going to hit the over. There was a time not so long ago where they hit the over like 9 years in a row. Maybe they could do that again this time around. And if you do that with your bonus bets, what a wonderful thing. $5 on any bet. If they wins, you get $300 to go play around with. Of course, you got the MLB playoffs still going on. Not very good. If you want to do the happiness hedge with the Blue Jays, now is the time. Okay, I'm not going to talk about baseball because it's upsetting me. What's not upsetting me is the prospect of winning $300 in bonus bets with one winning $5 bet. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Go do it. Wrapping things up here on your mailbag edition of the podcast on a Wednesday. Thanks so much for being here again. A week from today, I am hosting a watch party at Last Supper Books in Hamilton. 148 James Street North. If you want to take the train in from Toronto or wherever surrounding area, you can get there easy. You just take the train, walk up James Street from West Harbor GO Station. Boom, you're there. It's very close by. It's lovely. We'd love to see you. If you're in Hamilton, great. Come on down. We'd love to see you. Love to see you there. It's really, really going to be a blast. We're going to do a book exchange. Bring a book. Bring a book you've read about basketball. We will swap books, and you'll leave with a book you haven't read before. How fun is that, too? Q&A, all that good stuff. And, we'll have some drinks, have some snacks, and very much looking forward to seeing you there. Okay, let's the RSVP for that, by the way, link in the description of the podcast if you want to come and hang on the 22nd, 7 p.m. doors at Last Supper Books. Next one here, this comes from Jecky0530 asking, do you think there are any records that the team/players could break this season? 242 3-pointers held by Fred VanVleet, 4 triple-doubles held by Scotty Barnes, 772 team steals. Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's one that's like always at risk in the modern NBA, which is most 3-pointers made by a team in a season. The Raptors' most threes made, 1,041 from the 2020-21 season. The Tampa season, the most threes that are made. That's funny. Threes, not always indicative of being good at basketball, as it turns out. I think for me, with the 3-pointers this year, like last year, they were a bad 3-point shooting team that was a low volume team. That still is the 5th highest 3-point volume team we've ever seen in terms of makes in Raptors history. They hit 969 threes last year, good for 5th all time. Again, less than 100 away from the all-time record. I will say they will break or come close to breaking at the very least the all-time record for threes, because I think they're going to take more of them. I think they have more guys who are good at threes, and I just think, they'll have slightly higher percentages, more volume. That will lead to 80 more threes or whatever they need here to break the record. So yeah, I'd say that one is very much in danger of falling. The team steals record, that one is from the 2022-23 season, season where they were not particularly good, but they did like to get on the run and get steals. That one could very well be in play again this year too, right? Like, this is a team that's going to try like hell to get a lot of steals. They've been well over double digits in a lot of these games so far in the preseason. You go double-digit steals every single night. Guess what? You are very comfortably breaking that all-time record for 772 steals in Raptors history. Individual records, this one's tough. I don't know if they have like guys who are going to really have the juice to break a whole bunch of individual records on this team. Most 3-pointers made, that's always one that's going to be at risk because of the modern NBA. 242 is the record for Fred in 21-22. I would say there's a chance Quickly could do that if he's taking threes like he did in the last preseason game. He's hitting 5 a night. Yeah, of course. That's very much going to rack up real quick, and he's going to be in the conversation. He's got to stay healthy, obviously, but I think we could see him flirt with that record this year. 242 is a lot of threes, though, man. It's not an easy thing to break. A lot of these the rebound records, I think, are going to be tough just because a lot of them are from like earlier ages of basketball where a lot of misses were happening and there are a lot of rebounds available, less efficient offense. The top 5 or 6, 7, 8. All the top 10 rebound seasons in Raptors history on the offensive end come from before 2016-17. All of the highest defensive rebounding seasons come before that time as well. All the total rebounding seasons very much the same. Like, it's not easy to go and like rack up a bunch of rebounds on a team where, just there's more shots going in than ever. There's more efficient offense than ever. There's fewer rebounds around to grab, unless you become a really crazy offensive rebounding team where you spam it, and maybe that's the way you can go and do it. Either way, there's that. No one's going to break Damon Stoudemire's minutes record. He played 41.5 minutes a game back when he was with the Raptors one of those years. That's not going to get broken. Those individual ones are tough. So I would bet against, outside of the 3-point field goals one, I don't think we're going to see a huge number of personal season-long records fall. The triple-doubles thing, I mean, Scotty is always able to go get triple-doubles. I think that's very possible too. 4 is a lot. He has the record. I think he could see 5 this year. That could definitely happen. Field goal percentage, maybe that's the one. Jakob Poeltl set the record last year by quite a mile. 62.7% field goal percentage for Poeltl last year. And that was on like a higher usage season than he's had really ever in his career. I could totally see him in a little bit of a lesser offensive role this year, just getting very easy shots to finish, and maybe he can Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, Jakob Poeltl in the running to break the all-time field goal percentage record in Raptors history. He has the record at 62.7. The next highest, Valanciunas in 2014-15 at 57.2. So yeah, as long as he's not taking a bunch of threes, I could totally see Poeltl flirting with that record once again. Yeah, let's go to the next question here. This one comes from Matt T asking, does adding prime Kyle Lowry to the current Raptors team make them contenders? The answer is yes. If he was their point guard, I'd feel damn good about it all working because Kyle Lowry is a basketball genius who played a damn good point guard, man. He was just so good. So yes, I think that's pretty obvious, clear. You put Ingram with Barnes and Poeltl and Kyle Lowry at the peak of his powers. Yeah, that's a damn good basketball team that's comfortably a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, I think. He was that good. Last one here comes from Nico asking, way too early, but what teams do you think could be a good old-fashioned rival for this Raptors era? The worst part of tanking years is there's no one to root against, and we're finally, fingers crossed, ready to be competitive and have some animosity brewing again. I love this question. This is one of those unspoken costs of being a team that sucks on purpose, right? It's a really good point. You don't get that sports hate going. You don't get the juices flowing on a random night when you're playing a team you can't stand or that you're battling for seeding with or whatever. Yeah, I think there's a good chance we get at least a couple of sort of burgeoning rivalries this year, just because trying hard is a way to get other teams to be mad at you, right? Like this team has been a try-hard team. That's going to piss some people off. Scotty Barnes likes to clap in people's faces. That's going to piss some people off, especially if the team is good and winning. So, yeah, I will say, Nico, I didn't include it in the question that's on the screen or what I read, but he mentioned Detroit. I think that's a great pull. You have the 2021 draft connection between Cade and Scotty Barnes. You have, the Pistons, I think, trying to fight against being this year's version of the 2022-23 Raptors, where you just kind of rely on internal growth and not doing a whole lot in the offseason to upgrade your team after a surprise year. And I'm skeptical of the Pistons, frankly, and I do think this could be like a battle for 6-7 in the Eastern Conference very easily. And the Pistons are like a try-hard team too. They seem to have a bit of attitude. The Raptors, I think, are probably going to bring a little attitude to the table. I think that's a really good pull. I wish things had transpired. I wish the Cavs and the Raptors had gone at similar sort of tracks here because, like, Evan Mobley versus Scotty Barnes, those matchups are always fun. They seem to get up for them. Obviously, the Cavs are just much better than the Raptors, and so it's a little harder to have those, good beefs. I would love if the Pacers could be one of those real sort of competitors for the Raptors. They might be a little bit better once Halliburton's healthy again, but obviously the Pascal thing is a nice through line there. The Knicks, obviously, you got the other connection with OG. It's always fun to beat the Knicks when you're the Raptors. The Sixers are just too sad. I don't think that's a really good one anymore, even though that was probably the team I disliked the most back in the day. And look, it's always really easy to hate the Miami Heat, and I think they're going to be in kind of the same bucket of teams. The Hawks, Trae Young seems to invite all kinds of enemies, and so maybe there's something there. But the Pistons feel like the pretty clear one to me, the close geographical rivalry, all that stuff. The Raptors fans invading the building, all that, maybe less so now that the Pistons are good. So that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I think the Pistons are the clear one here with, an honorable mention, I'd say, to the Pacers at full steam. And, hey, it's always fun to beat the Bucks, too, even though the Bucks are Giannis and a bunch of humps who stink. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. As always, we'll be back again on Thursday as we break down the Raptors-Celtics preseason game that I'll be watching the first hour of before I turn over to baseball, and we'll finish the preseason game after the baseball game has either made me very elated or maybe very depressed. Either way, we'll have some good stuff on Raptors Celtics tonight. Hopefully we see some guys play. That'd be fun. More Ingram. I want to see more Brandon Ingram. He's really cool. I want to see him play basketball. Anyway, join the Discord. Link in the description of the podcast. We'd love to see you become part of our listener community. Great time to do that as well. And again, RSVP, link in the description of the podcast for that as well, to the watch party at Last Summer Books on October the 22nd in Hamilton. We'd love to see you. Either way, bye-bye. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging. See ya. Damn it.